listening to Package Your Genius, a conversation designed to give you clarity on your calling and serve as a catalyst for your career. I'm your host, Amanda Miller Littlejohn. Welcome back, geniuses. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Package Your Genius. Spring is almost here. The weather has been crazy, and global warming aside, I've been thinking about how, as spring approaches, how we need to be thinking about the fall and looking towards the harvest that we want to see for our personal brands. As you know, I'm really into George Washington Carver and his ideas about the earth and crop rotation and how there are opposing and opposite reactions for every action that we create. And me being from the South originally, I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, but my parents were both from the deeper South. So Western Tennessee is where my mom is from, and then southeastern Georgia and Alabama is where my dad is from, and I spent a lot of summers there. And for both of my, root families, planting, farming, and understanding how the planet works and how harvests are created and how things grow was a big part of the education I got during summer vacations and visits with my grandparents. And so I was talking to a friend earlier just about, what would someone who is, who has a farm and who earns their living from planting crops, what would they be doing this time of year? It's early March. Spring hasn't quite broken yet, but it's on the way, right? The signs are here, and we know that just by the calendar, again, global warming aside, I know it's maybe 80 degrees where you are, where it should only be 40, but global warming aside, we know we only have so many more dormant days of winter left. And so, if you were a farmer, what would you be doing to get prepared? Because I believe that there are so many parallels between the natural world and how things grow in nature and our personal development as well as our business development. There's so many parallels that we can only look to nature to find the lessons to understand what we should be doing at any given time as it relates to our personal lives, our personal development, and getting our businesses to the next level. So stay with me. So if you're looking at a farmer, a planter, and it is early March, the weather hasn't quite broken yet, what would that farmer be doing right now? So you may not be, preparing the land just yet. He may not be breaking ground to plant seeds just yet, but he or she may be investigating and reflecting on last year's crops, last year's yields to see, okay, what makes sense for me to repeat this year? What do I want to plant again? What demand was there for this particular crop? Did I create more or harvest more than I could sell? Did I have more demand from customers than I could fulfill? What are some of the things that I need to be thinking about and kind of, mapping out my plan and my strategy for what I'm going to actually invest my time and my resources into planting this season? And then that farmer may be also thinking about the different things they need to do right now just to get ready for planting season and even harvesting season. I was talking to one of my Package Your Genius Academy cohort members because we had our one-on-one sessions for every cohort. After we break for lesson 3, we have an implementation week and no classes, no new lessons, but everyone gets a one-on-one session, a one-on-one coaching session. And so I was on one of these one-on-one coaching sessions with a current cohort member, And I was asking her about, some of the things that she has coming up in the spring. And she mentioned a number of really incredible visibility opportunities on the calendar. Speaking engagements where she'll be presenting on her research and her area of expertise. She's a researcher who focuses on positive outcomes for children. And, I was asking her traditionally for some of these engagements that she has done before and, kind of knows the lay of the land with them. Like, are other people in her industry looking at them? Are other people in her industry attending? And, like, what are some of those moments that are going to be coming up over the next few months where everyone's attention will already be placed, right? And so she pulled out a few dates out of her hat, and we kind of built a strategy there on our call for her to take these opportunities for speaking, for public speaking, and basically repurpose them or get more mileage out of them by her creating media events to create even more visibility. So, she's going to be sharing on her topic, her area of expertise. She's going to be giving remarks. She's going to be developing decks, right? She's going to be presenting research. So why could she not repurpose all of that work, all of that preparation, all of that effort into crystallizing her ideas for a speaking engagement? Why could she not simply take those and transfer those into a media opportunity, whether that means her writing an op-ed for, the Washington Post or the New York Times, or pitching an industry reporter that might be interested in her, new research or her take on this topic. And so, going back to this planting and farming metaphor, it's really about looking ahead because when your seasons of harvest are going to be. So she knows, when her industry is going to have a lot of attention, when they are going to be a part of the national conversation. But also, at this point in the year, she already knows when she's going to be delivering some of her most impactful talks, when she's going to need to be preparing for the big speaking engagements. And so instead of squandering or not fully leveraging those opportunities and leveraging all of the hard work that is required to get ready to present those opportunities, why not anticipate what you're doing with your brand so that you can figure out the best way to leverage it. And so that brings me to another thing that kind of bothered me a little bit about our conversation. And, this is a very powerful, brilliant woman who is doing some amazing things for her community and just, for her industry and for kids and for marginalized people. And she does a lot of presenting and talking and sharing. But what is troublesome to me is this lack of a record that is being kept. And so one of the reasons why I encouraged her to write an op-ed or to plan to get information, to get in position to write an op-ed in conjunction with these big speaking opportunities is, speaking is amazing. And it's one of my favorite visibility vehicles. It's one of the things I recommend first to people who want to make themselves more visible and be better known. But unless the organization that's hosting the conference or the talk is recording or live streaming or creating some record of you speaking, it's almost as if it didn't really happen, save for the people who were in the room. And in that way, public speaking can almost be like, the vanishing social media like Instagram stories or Snapchat. It's like it happened in the moment, but if there's no record of it, it almost sets you up to be erased, or it sets you up to not get the credit for all of this effort you're putting forth to bring yourself to these events. And so, one of the reasons why I was encouraging her also to try to get some media coverage, or to turn her notes and her preparation into something that she could pitch to the media, is because that media hit, that op-ed, creates a record that it happened. It creates a record that she was here thinking these thoughts. She was here, putting these ideas forth. She was here owning this conversation and this narrative, because in the future, if someone gets wind of the amazing research that she's done and the thoughts that she has, been the first to put forth, and they are savvier and they end up getting more visibility or media around it, or they make a record of it, it's like history gets revised again. And so, for you, going back to our planting metaphor, it's spring. Spring is on its way, and we know what our year is shaping up to be. Obviously, we'll probably still land some new clients and land some new media and speaking engagements that maybe we didn't anticipate for later in the year. Those are always welcome. But for the most part, we know what's on the horizon, right? Like the big talks, the big engagements, we know that those are coming. The launches that we're doing, so the Academy launch for both the next cohort and then the fall cohort, I know those are coming, right? How am I preparing? How am I engaging with my current cohort to know what I can do better for the next cohort, right? So like, how are you looking at your previous harvest to know what seeds you should be planting once the weather fully breaks? Like, that's what I want you to be thinking about. How can you make the most of the season of growth that is coming? And how can you assess past seasons of growth and harvest to make better decisions about what you will do in this next season of growth, because it is on its way? And as you're looking at your calendar and you're looking at the things that you have coming up, I want you to also be thinking strategically about how you can make a record so that those achievements, those accomplishments, those talks that you're doing, those ideas that you're putting forth, especially when you're putting them forth in the spoken word and there's no recording, there's no one creating a video, there's no one broadcasting this so that we can watch it later or that you can post it on your website. How are you making a record? What is your plan to make a record of the things that you'll be doing and the opportunities that you will have? What's your plan? So my client, I want her to write some op-eds because she's an expert. She's a researcher. She should be doing that. Her ideas, her perspective is very valuable and it should be put forth in mainstream media. When I think about me and some of the business objectives that I have for the rest of the year, I'm already thinking about, on the heels of Maximum Exposure, the virtual PR conference. Well, maybe I should do a similar conference in the fall that's tied to the business programs that I am wanting to get people excited about, right? And so this is a really great time of year just to be thinking about everything that's coming up, what seeds you need to plant, what takeaways can you grab from the past seeds that you've planted and what they have yielded. How can you improve what you're doing going forward? Because we still have a short window of time before it's time to begin planting, before the weather fully breaks and it's time to, get the ground ready, open it up, and plant the seeds that will yield the harvest for this year. And so this is decision making time, really, like assessing, deciding, and strategizing. And I want you to be assessing, deciding, and strategizing, but also creating your plan to make a record so that whatever you harvest later this year cannot be erased. We are accepting applications for a new public relations program, my new vision for PR, specifically designed for personal brands. If you missed the Maximum Exposure virtual PR conference where we talked about how to become the go-to expert, where James Walker shared how he secured quotes in the Wall Street Journal 8 times. Over 1 year, he secured quotes in the Wall Street Journal 8 times in 1 year. How Stephen Hart talked about how he started his top-rated Trailblazers FM podcast and gave tips for people who want to get booked on top-rated podcasts. And he also gave away all the secrets for just podcasting in general for those who want to start their own top-rated podcast, which I didn't anticipate so many people were interested in launching their own podcast, but I guess I should have been. It's such a popular and powerful medium. But if you missed Maximum Exposure, you really missed a powerful day of learning. But as I announced during the conference, we are kicking off a new PR experience for high achievers, for experts who may have considered hiring a PR firm in the past. They may have considered working with a PR consultant to get their work out there into the world, and they really need support coming up with new story angles, new pitches, crafting that pitch, and really they need help getting in front of the media. So, if you don't necessarily have a ton of media contacts and you need a way to meet new journalists so you can start building those relationships, we announced the new Maximum Exposure PR Mastermind, which is specifically designed with experts in mind, and it's meant to be a program for people. So it's not for big companies, it's not for big organizations, it's specifically for coaches, consultants, academics, authors, researchers who need to land the media that will help them take their ideas, their mission, and their message to the next level. So you can check out the details for the program at packageyourgeniusacademy.com/exposure. That's packageyourgeniusacademy.com/exposure, where we are accepting applications for our first group of agency clients, where we'll be working with you one-on-one and in small group settings to pitch your ideas to the media every single month. I invite you to apply if it resonates with you. And if you know someone who's been looking for a PR partner, please share that information with them as well. That's about it for this episode of Package Your Genius. Remember, spring is just around the corner, so we still have some time before the weather breaks to make strategic decisions about the future of our brands for this year. So what decisions can you make? How can you make a record of the things that are on the calendar now? How can you leverage the opportunities that are coming up? Don't squander the visibility opportunities. How can you tie them to media exposure? How can you tie them to sales pitches? How can you leverage the opportunities that you have on your calendar to get even more out of them so that you can harvest even bigger? That's all for this week. I will see you next week.